Turn your life around for the final bell. It's now or never, you have to change well. It's now or never, you must change well. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Change Well podcast. Now, one thing that helps us always to change well is finding ways to de-stress. Now, I just started a new job for a new company after I left the company I worked for 30 years. So quite frankly, I'm in a lot of distress right now. And so I had to go back and think of the proven ways that I learned before to de-stress. So what are the 8 or so ways to de-stress? Well, the easiest way is to use the word de-stress, and each letter will help us figure out what are some methods to de-stress. Now, the first one that I thought about was the D for de-stress, and it's dance. One of the best ways to lighten the load and your mood is to dance. Nothing gets me going more than motion and music, and I really, really love dancing. As a child of the 80s, dancing to really good new wave music. One of my favorite go-to songs, and I always go out when I'm here in Austin, I need time to de-stress. I go to a group called the Spasmatics. They play out in Austin. I think it's every Wednesday night. One of my friends, after we would work on a long proposal, would go out and listen to the Spasmatics, and they play like 80s music. And sometimes you got to be a spaz to get rid of the distress. Now, my favorite song, and I don't know what yours are, maybe you can add it in the notes, is that song by the Proclaimers. It's called I'm Gonna Be, but a lot of people know it by, well, I will walk 500 miles, and I will walk 500 more. Now, that's a really good song to de-stress to, because you're sitting there walking with like you're marching, and that song has a really good beat. You don't really have to move that much. You don't have to be a great dancer. You don't have to be a Fred Astaire. You're just having fun. So the first proven way to de-stress when you're distressed is our letter D, dance. Now the second letter is E. So what is the way to de-stress that starts with the letter E? Well, the thing I thought about is elevate your mood. And one of the best ways to elevate your mood is to smile. The simple act of smiling and laughing has been shown to just brighten your day and to remove some of your stress. So it may seem a little weird. People might think you're trying to do that latest movie Smile, but just sit there, smile, think happy thoughts, and go a long way of de-stressing. Now we're up to the S. What is something that starts with an S and that helps you relax and de-stress? Well, stretching. Now, I got to say, I'm a very uptight guy and I'm a very tight guy. I don't usually like stretching except when I am stressed out. So a few simple stretches. You don't have to do a downward dog. You could just do a few calf stretches. Can help you just get all the tension out of your body. So stretching is our third letter of de-stress. Now, what is T for de-stress, right? T is the fourth way to de-stress, and it's talk it out with a friend. So one of the best ways to get over your anxiety is just talk about your problems to a friend. And if you don't have a friend there, if you're alone in your room, just talk it out to yourself. Or talk it out to God in prayer. But one of the best ways to de-stress is to talk it out. And if you don't feel like talking, write it out. But I use talk it out because it starts with T, and that's the fourth letter in de-stress. The next one, R. This one is called restore and relax. Now, I have a really, really good story about restore and relax. Back when I was in the second year at West Point, I went through a lot of stress in my first year, plebe year, getting chewed out and everything, but I really just lived with it, right? I didn't really do restore and relax. So I started my sophomore year and everything's going fine. I kind of started getting the knack of things. and I was no longer a plebe. But believe it or not, I got more stressed out my second semester of my sophomore year because I suddenly was like on a streak and getting good grades. And I kept thinking my grades were going to slip. So I got really, really uptight, and I was getting so anxious. I would study for 15, 16 hours on some tests, and then I'd come around and I'd get a good grade, but I couldn't break out of my mind. So I actually went to a counselor at the school, and they said, you're just being too hard on yourself. And what you really need is to take some rest. So from that point on, and I broke down even. I was really stressed out. And I said, okay, I'm really well prepared. 16 hours is overboard. So I started a new motto. It was called well rested, well tested, never bested. And so I would study for 1 to 2 hours, figured out I had it down, and I'd go to bed. I'd go to bed sometimes at 8 p.m. before lights out. And that has set me well throughout my career at school and now later in life. So when I'm really stressed out, instead of sitting there worst casting and trying to figure out what's coming next, I sleep and restore and relax and think about what is now. So we're up to E. The next letter for de-stressing is encourage others. Encourage others? That sounds kind of strange, right? No, not really, because a lot of times when you're anxious and you're stressed, it's because you're too much in your own head. But you can always think about your problems, but by helping others, then you think a little bit less of yourself, about the problems facing you, and a little bit more about helping the person next to you. And therefore, it's a good stress relief. So just encouraging others is another way to de-stress. Now we're down to the last 2 S's. The big one for the next S is stop doing everything. Sometimes when we're striving and we're anxious, it's because we're just doing too much. Set some boundaries and stop doing everything. And that in itself can relieve some of the stress. And finally, for the final S, it's just silence. Sometimes you just have to be quiet with your thoughts, work them through, listen to some nature sound, or just, the ultimate silence is go to sleep. But bottom line is, these are just 8 ways to de-stress. And just to go over them again, first, dance. I used to even have a motto for when I was losing weight, right? One of the things that always got me, I would be stressed out and I would overeat. So I had a thing that if I knew I was going to eat a lot or I was stressed out, I said, hey, I'm going to dance so I can fit in my pants. So first is D, is dance. Second, E is elevate your mood. S is stretch. Even if you hate the downward dog, just do some simple calf stretches. T is talk it out with a friend. Next one, R is restore and relax. E is encourage others. S is stop doing everything. You're not Superman or Superwoman. Everybody needs time for themselves. And last is just rest in silence. Listen to the silence. Take in the beauty all around you. And in that way, you can change well. And until next week, don't get distressed. De-stress with these 8 actions. Until next time, this is Don signing out.